With the information that we have now, it is not enough to just ask the question, is Donald Trump in the Epstein files, or did he commit crimes alongside Jeffrey Epstein? We know that for sure by now. The questions that we have to ask have much darker answers, and they are about the extent to which this cover-up was taking place before Donald Trump's second administration. Donald Trump wasn't afraid of information about him and Epstein's relationship coming out just a few short months ago. This has been happening for decades, and Donald Trump certainly took darker steps to cover it up in his first administration, or at least that is what is now being alleged in a shocking video by Jeffrey Epstein's brother, that Donald Trump had involvement in Jeffrey Epstein's murder. We are going to get into it all, but before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button because it goes a long way in supporting our work. Now, before we get into this video of Epstein's brother, which is shocking, or I guess I shouldn't say it isn't at this point, I want to start going back to Donald Trump's first administration with this report from Rachel Maddow that gives us the context that we need.
What happened to the lawyer who got Epstein his bizarrely lenient plea deal when he was first arrested on sex trafficking charges in Florida? What happened to the lawyer who got him that bizarrely lenient plea deal? Well, Trump hired him to be his own lawyer. What happened to the U.S. attorney who gave Jeffrey Epstein that bizarrely lenient plea deal? Trump put him in his cabinet in his first term. Well, who then prosecuted Epstein a second time when he was brought up on federal charges? That was the SDNY line prosecutor who Trump inexplicably fired last week. Who was in charge of the Department of Justice and the Bureau of Prisons when Epstein then killed himself in federal custody? President Donald Trump. Who bragged to a reporter about how much Epstein seemed to like women on the younger side? Who said Epstein was a lot of fun to be with? Who bragged that he was friends with Epstein for 15 years? Who flew on his plane at least 7 times? And who now says that everybody needs to stop talking about Jeffrey Epstein right now? Answers there are Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump, and Donald Trump.
We know when Donald Trump's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein started, but it never really ended. Even if you say that Trump and Epstein stopped spending time together maybe in the early 2000s, which just isn't the case considering Epstein said that he saw Trump at Thanksgiving in 2017, but their friends, their colleagues, people that they worked with in business were constantly overlapping. The relationship between Trump and Epstein continues to this day. What do you think Todd Blanche visiting Ghislaine Maxwell is? That is a continuation of their relationship. And it certainly was when Donald Trump, in his first term, surrounded himself with people with connections to Jeffrey Epstein and getting Jeffrey Epstein off and hiding Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. Those were connections that Donald Trump had right away. Now, is it because he likes people who are able to cover for criminals, who are able to cover for pedophiles, that he likes anyone who's as much of a skis bag as he is? It's possible. But it's also possible that Donald Trump came into that first administration knowing that he dodged a bullet when Epstein did not say anything that he said would end the election in 2016. And that Donald Trump wanted to protect his political future, wanted to protect his presidency by surrounding himself with people who could keep Epstein quiet. And maybe that's why tonight he is freaking out more than ever with these 2 posts before we get into what Epstein's brother said. Trump also made an insane confession about the Epstein files, saying that House Republicans should vote to release them because we have nothing to hide. Okay, I don't believe that, but Trump writes it's time to move on from the Democrat hoax perpetuated by the radical left. It is also important to keep in mind that Keith Edwards posted tonight, 2 weeks before he's arrested, Epstein texts Steve Bannon, "Now you can understand why Trump wakes up in the middle of the night sweating when he hears you and I are friends." Well, it seems like Trump is waking up in the middle of the night, or at least posting in the middle of the night tonight, sweating, concerned, afraid of what is going to come out. Now, do I believe that Donald Trump actually wants the release of the Epstein files because he posted saying that Republicans should? No, of course not. He is investigating Bill Clinton and Reid Hoffman or Larry Summers, or at least allegedly is, because he wants to be able to block some of the release of these files and say, well, we can't share this information. It's part of an investigation. Or he'll have John Thune in the Senate not bring this to a vote. He can do anything He can try as much as he possibly can to block these files, but what we know is that Donald Trump is afraid of more than just his name being shown in connection with Epstein. He's really afraid, clearly, according to Epstein's brother, of his name being associated with the end of Epstein. Just listen to what he had to say on Don Lemon's show.
When you saw that interview with them, I think there was a couple of interviews. The one thing with Maria Bartiromo, where they sat down, and I mean, they were glum, and they're saying, there's nothing there. I would be honest with you, there's nothing there. After years and years of pushing, and also calling this somehow a Democrat, according to them, conspiracy theory, and that somehow the Democrats were involved in your brother's death.
I don't think the Democrats. Look, well, I look at it this way. Bill Barr, when he came out with that ridiculous statement, he was the Attorney General. You know, who did he look? If Jeffrey was murdered, which I believe he was, somebody did it. So the people who were coming out with these ridiculous statements, I think, are covering up for somebody, right? So who are they covering up for? You know, Bill Barr worked for the President of the United States. Kash Patel works for the President of the United States. Pam Bondi works for the President of the United States. Maybe someone should ask him what he knows.
Who do you think they're covering up for?
Who do they all work for?
They all work for Donald Trump.
Well, like I said in another interview, I wouldn't be surprised.
You wouldn't be surprised if Donald Trump was behind your brother's death? Are you saying that Donald Trump had your brother murdered, do you believe?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying if that's what it was, I wouldn't be surprised. We know that Jeffrey had dirt on Donald Trump. We know that. That's a fact. Because he said in 2016 with the election that if he said what he knew, they'd have to cancel the election. He didn't tell me what he knew, but that's what he said. And I've been public about that before. That shouldn't come as a shock.
Dirt like what? Dirt about what?
Cool. Steve Bannon said that the only person he feared for Donald Trump's sake was Jeffrey Epstein. Why? What do you think? Jeffrey was going to beat him up? No, it's because of what Jeffrey knew.
And what did Jeffrey know?
Well, I don't know. He didn't tell me what he knew, but he said if he said what he knew, they'd have to cancel the election. That's a direct quote.
Now, this is something that I think needs to be talked about a lot more. I think that we are well past the point of just asking questions of what is in these Epstein files that Donald Trump wants to cover up from his past life. I think a lot of people are focused on the 90s to the 2010s. Maybe 2015 is the last time people really think about the relationship between Trump and Epstein. That email in which Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein are thinking about why Donald Trump is the dog who hasn't barked yet. But what I'm really interested in is the conversation between Steve Bannon and Jeffrey Epstein. After Steve Bannon was fired from the White House, it seems like he made it very clear to Epstein that he was in harm's way and that he needed to rehabilitate his image and that he needed to bank some of that capital. And according to Jeffrey Epstein's brother, he wouldn't be surprised if it was because Donald Trump had his sets on Epstein, his sights set on Epstein. You know, you saw Steve Bannon in some of those emails, some of those texts that were released, literally saying that the gun sights were set on Epstein. Now, of course, you could take that to mean the prosecution of him that was coming, sure. But I think Epstein was aware of that. And Steve Bannon is, not unfamiliar with jail time. I don't think he would be speaking in such elevated language just about that issue alone, considering it was already known to Epstein. Right? He already knew this. Already been prosecuted before. So what were those gun sights set on? And what did that really mean? I think that it is important to remember that in the bungling of the Epstein file release that we initially got, there were multiple instances in which the footage from Epstein's cell that night, just the footage of his door, had been doctored, had been changed, had been edited. And it was very easy to see that that was the case. And I wonder why. Why would they release that footage? Why would they be so keen on squashing that conspiracy? That Donald Trump had something to do with Jeffrey Epstein dying. Why would they want to do that? And you might say, Jack, well, if they were trying to make people believe that Donald Trump had nothing to do with that? Why would they edit the video so shittily? Right? Why would they do such a bad job? I have an answer for you. If you're ever asking this question, I have a very easy answer for you. They actually believe that we're that stupid. I promise you, I know it sounds like so outside the realm of possibility, but if one thing has been proven to me through this whole ordeal, through this whole saga, through this whole cover-up, is that Donald Trump thinks, maybe not you and I necessarily, but his MAGA base is dumb as shit. And we know they are. Like they are. We can level set here. They're pretty stupid. But he thinks that we're dumb enough to just accept that. I do believe that Donald Trump and Pam Bondi and all of them thought that they could just skate through this, that the public wasn't actually going to be that interested. They were high off their own supply in the first 2 months of this administration. They certainly were. And if it wasn't for Elon and that post, they might have gotten away with all of it. I know we were bringing attention to it constantly, but being faced down by MAGA, that is something that Trump certainly did not expect. So is it my opinion that Donald Trump killed Jeffrey Epstein? I think it's certainly possible. But more than anything, I think it's a question that needs to be asked. And if you're not, as a journalist, not as a casual observer, but as a journalist, I think if you're not pressing the administration on that question, if you are not seeing Carolyn Leavitt's face when she is asked that question, if you are not getting a reaction from Donald Trump asking that question, I don't feel like you're doing your job. It is not conspiratorial to me at this point. It is really the most obvious end to all of this. It is. To me, it is the most obvious end. Sure. There's also Donald Trump's disgusting behavior towards children that has been well documented. And of course, that information could come out further, and it likely will, and it'll be disgusting. But for me, the guy who has spent his entire presidency so far, let's keep this in mind, publicly going after his political enemies, using the power of the state, using the DOJ to publicly make a show of going after his political enemies. Are you telling me that that guy didn't do so in the first term? Are you telling me that Donald Trump was unwilling to go that far for what he saw as his greatest political liability? Because it seems like that's the case. It seems like Donald Trump believed that Jeffrey Epstein was his greatest political liability. So what would that lead him to do? What would that lead Donald Trump to do? And not just Donald Trump, but people he put in that administration who also had a vested interest in Epstein going away. Why would they do it? Why did Donald Trump put so many people in his administration who wanted Epstein to go away? Why were so many of his rich buddies, his rich donors, the guys he hung out with at Mar-a-Lago, why would he do it? Maybe it was because it really mattered to all of them that Epstein go away. So I can just ask those questions because I think they're valid. And so is Jeffrey Epstein's brother. So we will continue to on this show. I hope this is not too conspiratorial for us tonight. I think we should ask these questions. We are going to on this show. If you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video. If you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. Keep on fighting, y'all. Don't let them silence you. And until next time, I'll see you soon.